Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Rare Earth Exchanges podcast. You've got me, your host, Dustin, and our illustrious co-host, Daniel. How you doing this week, Daniel?
I'm doing well, Dustin. Thanks. It's Thursday. I'll be glad when it's Friday and, just relax a little bit on the weekend, hopefully.
Right? Yeah, it'll be a good weekend, I hope.
Yes.
To relax, yes. Yeah, so some interesting things happened, right, in the last week. Where do you want to start?
Well, obviously, look, Dustin, there's a lot going on with, President Trump, and he's starting to, raise the topic of critical minerals and rare earths. He was calling them raw earth, the raw earth. But at least he's starting to think about it. Now, we can cover some news about that. Of course, the Ukraine deal sort of fell through, at least for now, although I hear Zelensky wants to get back and speak with President Trump. But, I think we can talk about things going on with China. China controls 90% of the processing of the rare earth market. So we have a few articles about China that we're going to go into, and then we'll cover a couple of the scenarios around the United States and what President Trump's trying to do.
Sounds great. So what's going on in China?
Well, first, just 2 days ago, we did an article, China's rare earth innovation, a strategic leap, and is this the growing threat to the West? I mean, one of the things that we're really monitoring, Dustin, is that there's an awful lot of news coming out of China about their rare earth complex, what we call the rare earth complex in Inner Mongolia, and some of these state-owned companies. And they're coming out with a lot of press releases. I don't know how much of it is marketing versus, actual fact. You have to be on the ground to truly understand. And we have a network and some people over there, but it's very hard to get hard intel. One of the things they're talking about over there is Baotao is the Baogang Group and subsidiaries like Baotao Anti-Northern Technology. They're talking about intelligent factories. So they're really trying to digitize these mass complexes over there so that they're more efficient. Automation, robotics, there's a lot of robotics. So they're talking about comprehensive government-backed innovation strategies, which are transforming their scientific research into industrial applications. So, and again, what they're trying to do and what they're presenting and positioning is this is bolstering our already monopolistic position. They're trying to make it so the West cannot catch up. And, the message coming out of China, and again, there's some propaganda certainly in some of this stuff, but there's a growing technological gap emerging between China's systematic rare earth industrial development and the West's fragmented approach to advanced materials production. They're not resting. They're very much like this one article we talked about, a technological breakthrough, integrating pioneering cerium-based magnet technology from Professor Li Wei and his team at China Iron and Steel Research Institute. So it's a research institute called China Iron and Steel, and along with anti-technology, they're again talking about these advanced intelligent manufacturing techniques, making the whole process more efficient. Now, obviously, we're not seeing it. It would be always good to, get more details than what we're reading in press releases or in reports. We're seeing a lot of this. We're seeing a lot of research and development come out of that industry in China. And, really this premise is that this development is enhancing China's ability to, balance both rare earth utilization, resource utilization, ensuring that it can optimize supply chains while also importantly reducing waste, a capability that they're pretty convinced over there Westerners don't have. And it's pretty true. I mean, we have very little refining and production of rare earths in North America. I mean, the Mountain Pass, MP materials, they're starting to ramp up some refinement. They're sort of a treasure trove, a national treasure trove for us, but it's very early days. So, I think that, again, a theme that we're picking up on is a flurry of activity around investment in research and development. Since we founded Rare Earth Exchanges, we're seeing a whole lot of information about that topic coming out of China.
Yeah, it's interesting that they're leveraging digital application to widen the gap and advance their lead over any other country. Not just
Yeah.
us here in the United States, but any country, which is crazy, honestly. Like, You would think to me it feels like, here in the United States we're very tech focused. We have a great tech industry. Like, are we truly that far behind, or are we just not capable of catching up with their digital innovations that they've got going on?
Well, remember, it's on top of this very environmentally not very friendly refining, separation, refining, sintering process. So, for a couple decades, China did this work which nobody else wanted to do, and we didn't think of it. We just didn't think about it. There were points in time, however, though, that our government was concerned. Like in 2010 or 11, there was an incident where China used its clout against Japan, and that spooked governments and the markets to some extent. But then we forgot about it. So, yeah, they're using technology now on top of other, more, I would say, bespoke refinement, separation and refinement processes, some of which have environmental significance, in terms of negative externalities. Even some radioactivity is a byproduct. So there's a lot of stuff over there that, I hear consultants over here say, "Oh, we can catch up with China pretty fast. It's not that big of a deal." No, that's totally wrong. That's incorrect. If we wanted to put everything into it today, we're a decade away. Yeah,
That's a long time.
at least.
That's a long time, and I feel like that's just 10 years closer to China completing their game plan.
Exactly. Their game plan is the currency, that they're going to have enough money and power. They'll surpass us from a GDP perspective, and then they'll be overseeing the currency. That's their goal. Again, without firing a shot. Remember, they don't want any wars or anything like that. But they want it's an economic war for sure.
Oh, that's crazy. Okay, so China's trying to advance the lead with technology, and here we've got President Trump saying, "Mine, baby, mine."
Mine, baby, mine. Okay, so now, maybe, Dustin, just maybe, President Trump's people have been watching rare earth exchanges podcasts, or maybe they've been reading our news, because we have been saying that, you shouldn't be drill, baby, drill. You should mine, baby, mine. Okay, and then but then we have also said you got to process, baby, process, refine, baby, refine, and then manufacture, baby, manufacture. So that part isn't quite in there. But, look, I give President Trump a lot of credit. And I don't agree with everything he's doing, but, he knows there's a problem. I mean, frankly, Biden was just asleep at the wheel. Okay. The only critical minerals we were going to get would be, I don't know, something for the elderly. We weren't going to get anything that we could, innovate with. To Trump's, he is proposing more aggressive strategies, okay, to reduce dependency of United States on China for critical minerals and rare earth elements. There's no doubt about that. Okay, they're putting a plan together. They made some announcements to accelerate domestic mining. On his speech the other night, he talked about rare earths and minerals. They do want to accelerate both domestic mining and processing. That's, on their horizon. But as we've called out, there's significant economic and regulatory challenges that are in the way. They are a national security issue. We agree with that. But we don't think, Dustin, that the strategy is comprehensive enough to win. Of course, we have a proposal, and I think if Trump goes and flies over to China and does a deal per our recommendations, then, I think that's our influence, to be honest with you, because we've been writing about that quite a bit. So what we're saying Donald Trump should do is fly over to Beijing, okay, and negotiate a deal where the United States industry has access to these rare earths and whatever critical minerals for at least 5 years, if not 10 years, at set pricing. And that in exchange, we'll open up markets and things for them. So we'll make it a dynamic situation. The other day on an interview, he did say he's open to having Chinese come invest, and he wants us to go invest in China. So I think President Trump is open to this. He is the perfect person to do a deal like this. I mean, he went over to North Korea, for goodness sake, and stepped over the line. What American president does that? So he, the demilitarized zone, so I think that's our recommendation to President Trump. In parallel, so he comes back with that deal. He's a hero. But the Chinese also understand we are going to decouple over time. We're going to build our own resilience. We've got 10 years, and then we can methodically plan through industrial policy, which is what you're going to need, right?
Yep.
Do you remember why we need industrial policy versus just letting the sort of standard free market and a few grants here and there and some tax incentives? Why do we need something stronger?
We need to be able to cut through all the red tape a little faster. We don't have anything really, and I think because of that, it generates roadblocks, and other agencies and divisions would try to have their say in it when they really probably don't need to. But if we have policy, well,
Yeah.
now we have a path forward.
We have a critical mineral czar, somebody that is on top and responsible for streamlining regulatory agencies, cutting down the red tape, as you said, managing a pool of funding that's going to be used to underwrite a lot of the activity, not only the mining, but the processing, production, and innovation. And I believe we've learned a lot, Dustin, over time. The marketplace is going to innovate out of this dilemma. So we see, companies that have rare earth free magnets. They don't even need rare earths. We see recycling companies raising money here in the United States. So over time, I think in maybe 20 years, maybe a little sooner, maybe a little later, but there will be different options than just rare earths, I believe. We're seeing the seedlings of that now, but we're 10 to 20 years away from at scale where the China complex is now replaceable, right? I think we're at least 10 years away, if not longer.
So, hypothetically speaking, let's say in 10 years, 15, 20 years, right? We're able to have our own independence. We've built the infrastructure for mining, processing, producing. Um, would that flaw China's plan that they've got? The rest of their plan over the next 20 years? Would it just slow it down? What do you think the implications are?
I think it won't slow them down. I think that they have their own problems, contradictions. They have debt problems, internally. They have like lots of ghost cities and issues with the new generation in terms of labor shortages. There's problems in China. Don't make no mistake. I mean, they've got environmental problems. So other things can happen there. Life is not always just a straight trajectory, linear trajectory. Things can change, and something could happen in China that could disrupt their plans.
Life is never clean.
It's never clean and never straightforward most of the time. But I will say that, they control, look, think about this for a minute. They control the core commodities that you need for all high-tech goods. So that's why we're recommending that President Trump, goes and does a deal with the Chinese. I think that's okay. Secure these goods for us at a reasonable price, and then in parallel, plan and execute on a resilience program that is backed by some level of industrial policy around critical minerals and rare earths. So, but to answer your question, it's not going to slow China down, because they're monetizing, they're doing value-added production. So these electric vehicles, photovoltaic. If the whole world said we're not going to go clean energy, that might slow them down. And President Trump tried to disrupt that by saying we're not going to do the Green New Deal anymore. Forget that. We're going back to drill baby drill and hydrocarbons. However, now we're talking about mine baby mine, because we need the critical minerals, the rare earths, and that's why you see discussions with Ukraine, even though we've talked about there's nothing really exploitable in Ukraine in the short run. Greenland, Canada, the 51st state, etc.
Crazy
times.
When this is on your list.
Okay, so another one, back to China. We've been noticing in the news reports that we translate, the Communist Party is tightening the screw up in what we call rare earth countries. So there's one major region in Inner Mongolia where the biggest mines are, but there's also a few other locations. Baogang Group is one of the bigger companies. China North Rare Earth is one of their subsidiaries. It's state-owned, or at least partially state-owned. But what we're finding through Baogang Group, is they're demonstrating deep Communist Party involvement in corporate governance. What they're doing, Justin, they're ensuring that their business strategies align with their national strategic goals. And those national strategic goals are the things that we talk about, that plan. Okay. So they've been having meetings, late January, they had another set of meetings where they're emphasizing the strengthening of party control. And that means, implementing government policies, fostering collaboration between the state-owned rare earth enterprises and private enterprises. There's a lot of the smaller companies are still private. And what they're doing, Dustin, is the Communist Party is again, this is a weapon. This is an economic war, make no mistake. And their approach is essentially reflective of preparation. They're preparing. They're preparing for potential economic challenges because the West is waking up to this problem. Okay? Yep. So they're focusing on self-reliance, strategic control of critical industries, and having, again, the Communist Party as a major player in all of this. When you think of the Communist Party, you don't think of business scions, right? You don't think of business magnates. You think of, communist stuff, right? But no, the Communist Party is very, very involved with this rare earth complex. So, any thoughts on that?
I just wonder, like, what would it be like here in the United States if government took the same approach to the businesses that we have? I just don't think it would go over very well.
No, well, that's the problem. And again, it's not good, right? I mean, communism is not good. It's not good to have the state controlling businesses. But the problem is they're using it as a lever. They'll lose money to keep prices low, to put anybody in the West out of business that has to live by market rules and not Communist Party rules. The Chinese are using their treasury to prop up these industries to maintain this monopolistic control. And, our government just spending a few dollars and, encouraging people by saying, rah, 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 let's go. That's not going to cut it.
No.
That's not going to cut it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It just seems like a double-edged sword. I feel like the typical American approach, right? We don't need government involvement typically to start a business, run it, whatever. Obviously, there's like hoops we have to jump through with the government. But to really turn this around, we need the government and its money to jumpstart it. And I think that's the advantage that China has given its businesses there, right? The state-owned entities, by funding it to keep it going and to achieve certain dreams and ambitions that they have.
Yes.
In a way, I'm like, man, that was awfully smart of them. Good move. Good move.
With the basic, look, rare earths aren't that rare. They're all over the place. It's hard to collect it at the scale you need. And remember, in some cases, each element requires a different process for separation and refining. So they've developed these tailored, think about developing websites. You're a great web developer, but you use templates. Again, you use, off-the-shelf platforms where you can have a site up and running in no time.
Definitely helps accelerate the process for sure.
Well, these rare earth mines, they're not that. Each one is custom and built in with layers of intellectual property. And there's consultants out there like this guy. We just wrote about this guy. He's a global consulting guy. Peter Zaya. What is he called? Bear with me one second. I think it's important. So he knows about everything. He's on YouTube. And Peter Zeihan, okay? And, we critiqued one of his YouTubes recently because he just trivialized the whole process. Oh, it's not that big of a deal to get this stuff. It's just messy and environmentally problematic, but we could do it easily. That was sort of the implication of his presentation, and that's just not right. And there's a lot of that, and we're starting, like Dustin, you're starting to internalize what we're dealing with. We're not dealing with a normal situation that you would have in a capitalistic society. We're not.
No.
Again, Dustin, the market will innovate out of this. There will be disruptions that will allow for alternative methods, but it's going to take a couple decades, I believe. It's going to be a couple decades.
It's not fast enough. There's just so much that needs to happen and will change. in 20 years.
Yeah, yeah, but
Uh,
they'll be running the currency. We won't, the lifestyles that we have because, the dollar is the global currency, we cannot trivialize or take for granted. I mean, and we're a pretty, I mean, I'm biased, but we're an exceptional experiment. The American experiment is really, truly exceptional. So let's try to save it for goodness sake.
yeah, I mean, to that extent, I think there's a lot like this is all we've ever known, right? It's just this is the way life is. People take it for granted, and because of that, people have just, and I've said this before on the show, but I think people have just kind of fallen asleep. They're not paying attention, at least to this. I mean, they're paying attention to TikTok and Instagram and how to become influencers and viral and things like that. But yeah, it's very telling. Honestly, a lot of people I talk to about what's going on in the last few months, couple months here in our country, and it's clear they don't have the foresight or the appreciation for what's going on. The bigger picture. Today they see that the stock market tanked and they're upset by it.
Yeah.
Like their livelihood is being threatened, which it is. I won't say that it's not, but I think we've just put ourselves in a position of pain. Like we have to rip that band-aid off if we have any hopes of kind of healing and moving forward. But people don't view it that way. They don't view that there was anything wrong. So
Well, there's a lot wrong, and that's why, again, I don't agree with everything that President Trump is doing. I have to say there's certain things I just don't think is the right method. The spirit of what he's trying to do, I completely agree with. We need a reset. We need to downsize, and we need to, right size, and we need to get hungry and lean and mean again. And
yeah,
as entrepreneurs, we do that. It's just naturally, right? But most Americans aren't entrepreneurs. You
yeah,
know, they do their thing, but the problem is because the world is becoming multipolar, because different countries, China's on, they're very close to us. Within probably 5-7 years, they're going to pass us from a GDP standpoint. That's a major implication. And India is not far behind. India is fifth. They've got over 1.5 billion people too. I think they even have more people than China now. India is soon going to surpass Germany and Japan in the next probably 10 years. So you're in a different world now.
yeah. Which is crazy, like because right, we've grown up in a certain paradigm where America's on top,
That's
and
right. That's
it's
right.
I mean, which it's awesome to see these other countries,
Of course.
find
100%.
find their footing and work their way up to be a worthy competitor, which is amazing. But it also forces change.
It forces change. That's why Trump got elected. That's why he's trying to downsize the government. None of this is in a vacuum. Okay. And the rare earths is just one example. It's a very glaring example of how our political class and our corporate chieftains sold us down the river. I mean, they had no foresight. They didn't care. They were greedy. They were taking the profits. A lot of people got rich, but now we're going to have to pay the piper. Couple other things quickly. Thorium, it's an element involved with reactors. And according to recent news, a declassified survey, we found multiple news sources in China. The Bayan Obo mine has massive thorium reserves. So they say it's a geological survey that revealed the vast thorium reserves that they claim. And again, this could be propaganda, okay? Could power the nation, the Chinese nation, for 60,000 years, positioning the country as a potential leader in next generation nuclear energy. Now, we need to watch that. I mean, this is not rare earth. It's technically not a rare earth. It's like an exotic element, but it's not a rare earth element. I believe so. I believe it's not. The world's first thorium molten salt reactor is under construction out in the Gobi Desert. They believe that this will lead to a more efficient and cleaner alternative than traditional uranium-based nuclear power. So it's an alternative to uranium-based nuclear power generation. And they're claiming that despite the significant potential, challenges still remain in economically extracting the thorium and managing the environmental impacts. They are very concerned about their environment over there. We should watch this because, again, all this comes back to energy. These rare earths, critical minerals or even elements in this case, some of them become part of the green energy or nuclear energy. And nuclear energy is basically a clean energy. You just have to deal with the byproduct. But I think it's downplayed. I think nuclear energy has a lot of potential. So that's something we're watching out for. We'll be looking more into that. And again, on the United States and our attempt to counter China's rare earth monopoly, again, we have a challenging pathway, Dustin. President Trump's effort to try to position us to get access to mineral resources. I think it's important that we end with this, and then I want to talk about the website and projects. I think it's important, Dustin. Let's just say President Trump figures out a deal with Greenland and with Ukraine, and things warm up again with Canada and we start getting a product over there. Okay, so let's say all that happens. I ask you the question based on what we've learned, and again, caveat, we're still new at this. We're not experts. We're learning as we go. Okay. Why is that not going to solve our problem? We got Greenland on the news. It would solve our problem. Everybody says, "Yeah, we're going to get the rare earths in Greenland, and we're going to be set. We won't need the Chinese anymore."
So yeah, what's your question? Why will that not solve our problem?
Why will that not matter? At least in the next decade.
Well, it's as we've said before, right? Rare earths aren't rare; they're everywhere, right? Getting them is less of an issue as it is processing them. Right. And we've said that throughout the show, of even if we could mine it, it's got to go to China. Even a portion of what we mine out of California at MP Materials is contractually obligated to go to China for processing.
That's right.
Right. So
that's right.
We could get it out of the ground, sure, but are we just going to sit on it until we can get processing online? Maybe. Let's just buy Greenland and just let it sit there.
Yeah, exactly. So you're right. And so there's the processing, there's the separation from the host rock or whatever the material is, there's the refining, and then there's the production into things like magnets. They control that. I mean, we have a few companies doing some interesting things. MP Materials, very important company. Very important. If MP Materials is watching, we're your biggest cheerleaders here, okay?
Yep.
But it's not enough. They need help. They need a lot of help. If they have to operate like a standard company in a capitalistic market, they need help because the Chinese will bury you, okay? Because they don't operate by those rules, and they've got the cash reserves to do this for 100 years probably. So now, real quickly, I want to just get into before we call it a day. Dustin, we've got the projects up. What we're doing now is we're going through all of the mines, and we're actually doing some research online to see if they are actually producing rare earths or not. Some of them are not that we have. That's why we put that qualifier up there. I don't know if you can show it for the viewers, but we're going to make this a rich, compelling, centralized store of information for rare earth and ultimately critical minerals as well. So don't worry about it if you can't show it, but go to rareearthexchanges.com. You'll see projects. And again, that's a work in progress, but we're ultimately going to call all those facilities all over the world. And we're going to really take it to the next level of information. Then, of course, we've got, there it is, our global projects database. These are all the mines worldwide. So I'm excited about this, Dustin. You got it going, really grateful. And I think, we'll have, what are they really producing? Who are key contacts? A very rich resource for those that are interested in this topic. And
Totally.
Of course, we're also looking at a marketplace. I won't go into too many details, but we have ambitious plans. We're software developers. We plan on disrupting this industry.
Yep. Disrupt, baby, disrupt. Yep. We want to get right in the throes of it with the Trump administration, and yeah, we support the cause of reducing our reliance on not just China, but other countries that we might be heavily reliant on. I like synergy. I like working together, but when it feels like, we're held over a barrel, it's not a great position to be in. So yeah, I think that's our show, Daniel, right?
And I'll just leave with this recommendation to President Trump, because I know some of his people have to be watching our show. It's that important. President Trump, plan to get on a plane and go to Beijing and do a really creative deal where you negotiate access to all the rare earths that we need at a fair price point for the next 5, if not 10 years. Then, in parallel, when you get back, set up a mineral czar and start streamlining and start planning for, within this decade, from 2025 to 2035, we'll have resilience. So we'll support the Chinese and we'll work with them, and we'll allow them to get market love over here to make money, and we'll get what we need. I don't think it has to be hostile. I think there's a creative business solution, and I do think Donald Trump, of all the presidents that we've had, is the most ideal candidate to pull something like that off.
If you thought the last 2 months were busy, I think the next 4 years are going to be a wild ride.
Yeah,
He's got a lot of work to do.
I agree.
All right. Well, Daniel, let's sign off. We'll be back next week covering more of the latest news, what stood out to us, and we'd love to hear from you guys. So come to the website. We got comments turned on. You can leave us some feedback about the news that we're publishing on. We're on LinkedIn. We got a newsletter. So lots of places to come join the conversation, and we'd love your feedback. So with that, we'll see you guys later.
Thank you.